Well, all good things must eventually come to an end. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be reviewing my most disappointing book so far of the year, and that is the 12th book by Ian Fleming in the James Bond universe, You Only Live Twice. And yeah, I mentioned this in my mid-year check-in that this is my most disappointing book of the year, and it's really not even close. I didn't really like this book. I gave it 2 stars, which is the lowest rating I have given out this year. So yeah, just a really big disappointment. And I have a lot of things that didn't work for me in this story, and it is really unfortunate. I have heard that some of the later Bond novels kind of lose the thread, jump the shark. You know, Fleming had deteriorating health towards the end of some of the books, and so a lot of those things were going to come in and affect these stories. But I had hoped that this book wouldn't be affected by that yet, because this is like supposed to be the conclusion of what is known as a Blofeld trilogy, and I had high hopes for how this was going to end, and that it would be, you know, a cool way to send off this great villain that we had. And unfortunately, that is not really the case. I do also just want to mention that there are different kinds of disappointments. You know, there are sometimes books that you just get so hyped about that even though it's still like a really good book, you know, it doesn't meet your expectations. That's not the case here. This is more of like the, okay, I will correct myself. Some of that is here. I did have some excitement for this book and was very hopeful for it, but also part of it is this is kind of one of those stories where the story's just not even good. It doesn't really make sense, even in the universe that it's being presented in. And, you know, you can give a lot of leeway in a James Bond novel. I mean, ridiculous things are happening all the time, and it's just kind of part of the fun. But this one just took it too far. This is a true jump the shark kind of novel, which is kind of a crazy thing to say. I mean, we are talking about James Bond, like I said. You know, this is fake supervillain action hero kind of stuff that happens all the time. But up until now, a lot of it still felt somewhat grounded, and just the ridiculous nature of the story that happens in this book just was too much. And it did definitely affect the quality of the writing, the quality of the story, my enjoyment of everything, and just overall led to it being the disappointment it is. I do have a few positive things to say it, but you know, I gave it a 2-star, which just means I didn't like it for the most part, so that's really unfortunate. I think another thing that ended up making this so disappointing was that the start of this novel starts so strong. You are getting the fallout from the previous book. You're getting a very emotional Bond, one who is not himself, is distraught, is obviously depressed, and is really struggling with what has been going on in his life, and he doesn't really know how to deal with it. You know, this is supposed to be a macho man. More the movie Bond is like that, but still even in the book, he is definitely like a man's man. You know, there's no frill, nothing like that. He is a gentleman, a British man through and through. And at the start of this book, you know, he is struggling, and it's such a positive, and then that all just, you know, gets blown away by everything that happens after. So let's go ahead and I'll talk about the bright spots, and then I will talk about all of the negatives that I had. So for the positives, I kind of already mentioned it right before this, but that emotional characterization we get of Bond, it's not something we really see through too much of the series, and it's great. I just talked about it, so I'm not gonna elaborate too much more on it. But yeah, seeing that character growth and just that change and the struggle that he has is great. I will also say it was nice, and this is kind of gonna be towing the line of spoilers, but he gets his revenge. And it was kind of nice to see. The way it happened, everything around it wasn't, but the fact that he got it was kind of the nicest bow that could be put onto the story at that point. And so I am glad that that did happen. I wouldn't have liked for this to end in kind of an ambiguous way where maybe he doesn't, or something else happens and he's not really responsible for it. I think it was good for Bond to kind of close the loop on everything that had happened so far. And those are the only positives I really have. I'm sure if I really thought about it, I could think of some more, but you know, this is mostly a negative book, and I don't like being negative. I'm normally a very positive person, but unfortunately that is not the case. So let's go ahead and jump to some of the things that I did not like. So this novel takes mostly in place in Japan, which is an interesting setting. It's not one we had seen, but that is one of the first major issues that I have with this book. It almost felt like Fleming was definitely fetishizing Japan as a culture in itself. There is a lot of time spent on suicide in this book, and how honorable and traditional, like, Japanese beliefs that are, you know, very stereotypical of that time period. And there's a lot of time spent on how honorable it is to do that. And, you know, I don't know, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The whole time it just felt like Fleming was like looking, it's almost like he had a foot in making fun of the Japanese culture and not really appreciating it or anything like that. But then he also kind of was like, look how honorable they think of themselves and everything. So it was this weird blend of like, almost felt mocking, but also appreciating it at the same time. And the whole time, Bond has basically a tour guide to take him through Japan and help him learn. And it just, it just felt so mocking and just wrong. I don't really know how to explain it much better than that. I mean, Bond literally goes through a process in this story to change the color of his skin and haircuts and everything to make him seem more Japanese. And so that's kind of where I get to like the mocking, like not actually respecting Japanese culture, even though it's spoken it's spoken highly of, but at the same time, it's just, and maybe this is looking at it from a 2023 perspective versus when this came out in like the 60s. Obviously, culture and things like that were thought of very differently, but that doesn't mean it doesn't affect me negatively as somebody reading it in 2023. And so, yeah, just a lot of those things that happen with I think it's pronounced Tanaka, I think is the guide's name. Just a lot of the things that are explored through that character just felt wrong and didn't really add to the story, because in the end, none of it really mattered. All of that cultural stuff, it was just kind of like filler and fluff for the story, when really we know why Bond's there. We know what is really going on. Bond is there to get Blofeld. Like, that is the point. And it just, I don't know, it doesn't work. It feels weird. And, you know, obviously this is an Ian Fleming Bond novel. There are always, especially for women and minorities, like things that are very off color and would not fly in, you know, a book that came out today. But I don't know, this one just really crossed the line a couple of times for me, which is strange, because I've really been able to kind of compartmentalize that aspect of these books. And yeah, it just, I don't know, this one, it just felt so forced in this one. Now, this is going to definitely be a spoiler for this book, but the way Blofeld is presented in this book is a complete different character than we had seen before. The Blofeld we had seen before was cool, calm, and collected, always on top of it, the mastermind of everything going on. And in this book, he has devised a garden just full of toxic plants, bugs, there's piranhas that are like eating people, and that is all, he's using the guise of the suicidal tendencies that Fleming attributes to Japanese culture to justify having this garden where people come and do that action. And it's just crazy. You know, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but that is the character we see. And then as we interact with Blofeld more, we see how unhinged he has become as a character. And I never really got any reasoning why he became so unhinged. It's just like Fleming was like, well, I need to be done with this character. We're done. I need to move on, or something like that. And so he's just a completely different character with no real action to make him change that way. And I've mentioned jumping the shark a couple times. He walks around this garden in a samurai outfit, like full head to toe samurai armor. That's how he protects himself from the insects and plants in his garden. Is by walking around in a samurai outfit. And if that doesn't scream like jumping the shark, no idea what's going on, why does that make sense in any way, shape, or form whatsoever? I don't know what does. The final fight between Blofeld and Bond is literally James Bond sword fighting with a stick against Blofeld in a traditional samurai outfit. I don't know. It lost me so hard. I just thought it was dumb. It was, I mean, it is dumb. There's just nothing else to say other than it is dumb. And unfortunately, it ruins this really sophisticated, like cat and mouse game that they had going on. It come down to him literally in a Japanese samurai suit of armor and a sword versus Bond with like a broomstick, basically. And it just, I don't know. It doesn't work. It didn't work. It didn't make sense. And yeah, and the way it happens is just so quick. It's like, hey, why is this person saying they're somebody? Why is this white person saying they're a Japanese person from the mines? no, that's James Bond, and then they fight and it's over, and it just blows my mind that that is where we got to with this villain, because I thought it was such a cool thing to have this through line of like these little master plans and Spectre, and just, yeah, it just blows my mind that that is the conclusion we got for such an interesting villain, and all of the other things he had come up with. We get a sword fight and a stick fight. It just, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, honestly, on it. The last big plot point negative that I'm going to bring up is at the very end of this, James Bond gets amnesia and lives as a Japanese fisherman on an island with a woman who perpetuates this lie and then gets pregnant in hopes that she'll get married to Bond. And obviously that's not what happens. He starts to slowly get his memory back and ends up going to Russia, which I think is going to play on into the next novel. And I don't know, it's just amnesia? Really? That's what we're going to get for the end of this? And, you know, it just, none of it works. The last like 80% of this book is just a mess of a story that just doesn't work. And, you know, maybe people like this. I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe I am in the minority on my thoughts on this book. But I don't know. This story does not work any way, shape, or form. The amnesia thing, it was like an extra insult on top of the Blofeld fight we just got. It makes no sense whatsoever, and I hated it. I guess for any other negatives, you know, the story structure is very abrupt. I guess the writing quality was kind of the same as far as Fleming novels go. Maybe it was a little bit ticked down, but maybe that is also just me being overly influenced because I didn't like this novel in particular. So yeah, once again, just not a good time. You know, it's sad that this is the conclusion we got to the Blofeld trilogy, and just being this late into, you know, all of the Bond books. There's only 2 more. So I don't know what's going to happen with those. I actually dislike this novel enough that I'm not going to try to speed through the next 2 Bond books, but I'm definitely just going to probably read them back to back. They're very short. They're short even by Bond novel length. And so yeah, I've actually already started The Man with the Golden Gun, and then the next one is kind of just a collection of short stories, and I'm going to try and knock those out in the month of June. That wasn't my initial plan. I was going to just kind of spread them out a month at a time. But after reading this, I'm just kind of like, it's time for it to be done. All good things do come to an end, unfortunately, and it looks like that is the case with the Bond books. I was hoping I would make it through without not liking one of the books, and, you know, to make it all the way to book 12 with giving everything at least a 3-star rating is a pretty good run. But unfortunately, it came to an end with this book. But yeah, maybe I need to watch the movie. Maybe the movie's better. You know, maybe I should go watch the movie for this one and get some of this stain from my brain that was reading this book. Thanks for watching, sticking around during what is basically a rant about why this book isn't good. If you have any questions, comments, let me know down below, and have a good one.